Welcome back to the shop. Today we've got a pipe vise. I had sort of thrown this into the batch of citric acid in the midst of another project, and I will insert a before picture of it. And then I let it sit for roughly a week in the citric acid, not because it takes a week, but because I sort of forgot about it and left it in there for a week. I've heard a couple different people talk about leaving things in for a protracted period of time. You know, some say it's not ideal, but I haven't, at least with the quality of stuff that I've been working on, it has not been an issue leaving things in for too long. And I think this batch was weaker than most in the sense that I was using up the last bit in a bag, last batch. So it's done a good job removing all the rust. There's some water and WD-40 on this right now. I shot it with a little WD-40 to displace the water because I hit it with the garden hose after I took it out of the citric acid. So I think the next step would be to remove all these bolts, clean it up, paint it, and then bolt it to a workbench and use it. So let me start disassembling it. We've got everything knolled out here. The base, the clamp, the arms, the screws. It all came apart very nicely. I think that's a function of the citric acid dissolving all the rust on there, which, you know, made it a real dream to come apart. However, it, you know, for as clean as it is, it's still not clean enough to call it a restoration or anything like that. So I think what I'm going to need to do now is media blast all these parts. And you could wire wheel them, but I'm going to media blast them, and we'll bring them back and start to reassemble. The key with the media blaster is you want the material to be extremely dry. If it's not dry, it'll just push it around and sort of make mud. So I think I'll have to probably wait a day for this to dry out, and then we'll media blast it. It's been a day. These are dried out. We'll go ahead and sandblast them now and then work on painting. So we've sandblasted some of the parts and wire wheeled and cleaned up the threads on the handle mechanism. This might need a little bit more finishing. I'm not going full polish on this sucker because the pitting on there is pretty deep and this is going to get used, but there's sort of a fine line or some judgment call you have to make somewhere along the line, not going full scout crafter on things. And then just cleaning things up. I would say, you know, full scout crafter is a ridiculous amount of work with all the polishing and trying to go back and get that finish that, you know, is mere. It's not practical in a lot of cases for tools that are going to get used. That's my opinion. But trying to achieve a better finish is good for a couple reasons. And I think the aesthetics is one, and then the second reason that I would say is that each one of these divots or creases or imperfections is another spot to hold crud. And whether it be grease and oils from your hands or dirt or rust or whatever, but with a little bit of work, you can take down and get rid of the vast majority of those imperfections. And you can see that I didn't go whole hog with all of these. But I think that this will give me a better surface that I can guard against rust in the future, as opposed to the original, which has got all sorts of imperfections in here. And that is the same with the few bolts that are on here. I will have to rectify. This one apparently got smashed by something. But I'm going to go through and not do a full polish on these, but try to improve these to the point where they're have less surface area to corrode and whatnot. It's been a couple days. I let it dry out. I sandblasted it, then painted it with the hammered black paint. Now I'm going to reassemble this, and we'll see how she looks after that. So here it is. My reed pipe vise with a little bit of extra red paint on it. My red pen went crazy. Got paint all over me. Regardless, it's a Phoenix number 6. It seems to work pretty well. It was pretty decrepit, but the citric acid did a good job. It seems to function just fine. That really just locks into there. That is, it's hard to articulate how good of a grasp that is. It is probably not as good as it once was in the sense that it is missing a portion of the jaw here, but I don't think that that portion is going to be a fatal flaw as far as I can tell. Everything still centers on here, and that should be more than enough for the light use that this is going to get. It cleaned up well. The bolts I did not finish. I will probably come through and give this a cursory wash down with some of the CRC rust prevention, and that will keep everything in good working order. I just did a light polish on the handle. Again, just enough to give this back into service, as they say. And I think, let me show you one more thing. I'm going to show you a before and after picture of some lamps. And again, just to sort of demonstrate how the citric acid works. Here are a couple lamps that I put in the citric acid. The lamps are so far gone. You might be able to see that they're so far gone that the top just weeble wobbles back and forth with a little bit of rust that's holding that together. And you can see right through the top of it. The bottom is even worse. So they are absolutely well beyond any sort of useful point of deterioration, and I'm going to just hang them on the back porch. There's a couple hooks back there that I think they'll look nice. Thinking about maybe throwing a couple LED lights in here at some point in time. But again, the reason I'm showing this is that the citric acid is just really great in terms of being able to clean up stuff that you could not touch with the wire brush. If you came at this with any sort of aggressive media, there would be nothing left of this at all. So again, the citric acid is super helpful. Brian, thanks for turning me on to that. And I'm glad to have these old lamps, you know, even though they're not going to ever work again. Glad to have them around. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and I hope you're having a good day.